Coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, we'll give you the news and the notes, including a roster move that's been made and potentially a few moves that could be made. I'll talk about what I want to see from the Raiders the final 4 games of the season, plus your calls and texts. We'll close out the show. It's all coming up on Tuesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, December 13th, 2022.
Just win. Just win. Just win. Just win.
The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won, and won, and won, and won, and won.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen each and every day. Remember, you can find the Locked On Raider podcast free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Definitely appreciate everyone who has subscribed to the page and helped the page continue to grow. And really, it's been growing pretty quickly. So I got to shout out my guy, Ari, who does a fantastic job. You can find him on Twitter at Ari Produces, which I see many of you do, which is cool, man. Go ahead and shout him out again at Ari Produces. Give him a follow and tell him he's doing a fine job. Or if he's not, let him know about it. It's okay. I'm not mad at that at all, but thank you again for anyone who checks out the YouTube page for a minute or 45 minutes, whatever the case may be. Today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast is sponsored by Simply Safe Home Security with Fast Protect technology, exclusively from Simply Safe. 24/7 monitoring agents capture evidence to accurately verify a threat for faster police response. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Visit simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL to learn about more. Now let's go ahead and get into the news and notes segment here in section number 1. Segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Don't want to make the show go as long as it did on Monday. Want to kind of make it a little bit tighter than that. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Off top, saw this piece in Peter King's Monday Morning Quarterback talking about, winners and losers from week 14, and got to the section where it said go to the week. And believe me, this go to the week does not mean greatest of all time. It basically means you're the GOAT, like you're the bad guy for the week. And he gave it to Derek Carr. He said for his mind-boggling, horrible throw at the end of the first half of the Raiders' 17-16 loss to the Rams Thursday night. With 56 seconds left in the second quarter, the Raiders up 13-3. Vegas at 3rd and 5 at the Rams' 10-yard line. An incompletion here, and the Raiders go into halftime up 16-3. A completion and a touchdown the final minute, the Raiders go into halftime up 20-3. Instead, Carr threw an incomprehensible pop fly with 4 Rams and 1 Raider anywhere near the ball. It's one of the worst throws I've ever seen in a situation like that. Say the Raiders get a field goal there. Then with 5 minutes left in the game, it's 19-3. Raiders and the Rams need 2 touchdowns and two two-point conversions to tie the game and send it to overtime. As it was, the Rams scored 2 touchdowns and 2 PATs and escaped with a win. Carr's mistake didn't happen in the final couple minutes, but it didn't have to. The terrible pick reverberated till the end of the game. That was from Peter King, Monday Morning Quarterback. And again, I don't come into the show or ever any show I do trying to pile on Derek Carr. I know he's easily the butt of many jokes and a lot of complaints from Raider Nation. I don't try to be that guy, but all I can do is continue to see that ball floated into the end zone and realize how bad of a play that really was. Was it the only reason why the Raiders lost? No, but it was a big reason why the Raiders lost, and there was many reasons that the Raiders lost that game on Thursday night to the Rams. Now let's go on to the Raiders roster moves that they made. I told you that on Monday that the Raiders made the move to put center Hroniss Grasu on the active roster. They signed him to the active roster. He was on the practice squad. And remember, on Friday, they waived guard John Simpson. Well, also on Monday, they signed guard Jordan Meredith to the practice squad. So minor moves, but you can see there's moves on the way for the Silver and Black. And I'm sure over the final 4 games, you'll see more minor moves like that. Now, here's one move that's not necessarily a minor move that could be a good move as far as I'm concerned for the Silver and Black. And this is from Vinny Bonsignore from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Of course, does his radio show, The Morning Tailgate, on Raider Nation Radio 920 as well from 7 to 10 a.m. with Clay Baker and Heidi Fang. And he said he put out a piece on the RJ saying Waller and Renfrow could return. And he said things are trending in the right directions for Raiders getting Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow back this week. And a little piece of the article says, provided everything goes as planned, there's a good chance a couple of familiar faces will join them. According to a person with knowledge of the situation, things are trending toward tight end Darren Waller and wide receiver Hunter Renfrow being designated to return to practice after spending the last 5 weeks on the injured reserve list. So there you go. There's a good potentially opportunity for Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow to return to practice this week, which will allow them to possibly get out there on Sunday on the field and play against the New England Patriots. And again, that was really the main reason why Josh McDaniels talked about them not playing on Thursday against the Rams is because they weren't going to have any kind of opportunity to go out there and practice. And he didn't want to just go ahead and throw them out there on the field and say, go play without having any practice whatsoever from the Sunday to Thursday game, the short week. So now that that's over, they've obviously had a little bit more time to get a little bit more healthy and get prepared for the week of practice. And we will talk to head coach Josh McDaniels on Wednesday. So we look forward to seeing what he has to say. And maybe by then, Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow has already been activated from IR. Maybe he'll activate them and have them out there on practice on Wednesday. Not too sure yet. But from everything it sounds like, according to Vinny Bonsignore, and again, he doesn't put anything out there just to throw it out there and hope it sticks. Vinny is hearing someone, like he said, according to someone close to the source, right? That lets you know that, he's talking to someone that has good knowledge of what's going on inside the building, the Intermountain Healthcare Performance Center. So could be a good sign as far as I'm concerned to see Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow return and possibly get back in action Sunday against the Patriots as they head to town and play at Allegiant Stadium against the Silver and Black. So those are some good little news and notes, little nuggets right there for segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to jump into segment number 2 and talk about what I want to see in the final quarter of the season. Since there's 4 games, I'm going to give you 4 different things that I'd really like to see. I kind of talked about them a little bit on my radio show on Monday on Raider Nation Radio 920 as I was out at the Oyo Hotel and Casino, the Underground Lounge. Talked about that as a subject, but really got a lot of feedback from Raider Nation. Coming up in segment number 2, I'm really going to break down what I want to see over the last 4 games. And again, since there's 4 games, I'll give you A, B, C, and D. That's all coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast after I tell you about betonline.net. They're your number one source for sports betting information, stats, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to college bowl season to basketball, World Cup. They've got it all at betonline.net. If you love sports podcasts, and obviously you do, you can even find those at betonline.net. They're the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info and get your gamble on. Head to the website today using your laptop or your mobile device to learn about more. betonline.net. That is where the game starts. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to jump into the conversation about what I'll be looking for the final 4 games of the season. And I realize that some people, when they hear me say the final 4 games of the season, they'll say, yeah, but you never know what could happen. They can end up, playing more games. They can end up achieving the P word. And look, they might. I don't want to, just say that they're not. They're guaranteed 4 games. You never know what could happen the rest of the way because nobody in the NFL, especially in the AFC, is really defining themselves as really good teams. They're not really separating. So similar to last season when there was so much parity and it really went down to the last week, it technically could go down to the last week. So I'm not trying to say that the Raiders are eliminated. Mathematically, they're still in the conversation for the postseason, but I'm not trying to get into that. What I'm trying to get into is the final 4 games that I know they're guaranteed. Started this week with the Patriots. Then they have the Steelers in Pittsburgh. Then they return home and play the 49ers on New Year's Day and close things out with the Kansas City Chiefs. Those are the 4 weeks that I'm talking about. If they earn anything else, if somehow they get an extra game or 2, great. But right now, I'm just focused in on the 4 weeks that we know that they're going to be playing. So off top, I mentioned in segment number 1 about Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow returning. That's the first thing I want to see the final 4 games of the season. And I mean all 4 games. I want to see Waller and Renfrow playing. I want to see what it could look like. See what it has a chance to be. Can this offense be as exciting as what I thought it was going to be heading into the season? And the reason why I said you got to make sure Waller, Renfrow, Adams, Jacobs all have a chance to compete together at the same time. They've only played a handful of snaps together. Maybe 70 at the most throughout the whole season. So I would like to see, and I realize if Waller and Renfrow get out there this Sunday, they're not going to be playing all 70 snaps or whatever they have offensively. I get it. They're going to ease them back in, but I just would like to see what it could possibly look like for multiple reasons. One, because I think it could be really good. That's what my gut feeling tells me. That could be gas, but my gut feeling tells me it's going to look really good, what the offense could look like. But also, just in case it doesn't, just in case Darren Waller or Hunter Renfrow can't pick up the offense. Maybe they're not comfortable in it, right? What we saw from Darren Waller in particular, he didn't look very comfortable. What we saw from Hunter Renfrow didn't look like he was comfortable running the routes that he was supposed to run instead of the way that he was used to running them so far early in his career, right? So maybe those guys get out there and Josh McDaniels and company says, yeah, this isn't going to work. So if they do have that idea, then okay, they can in the offseason make some decisions to do whatever they have to do moving forward for the better of the team. But you won't know until you see it. So I think for everyone's sake, Raider Nation, the coaching staff, the front office, everyone, I think that they need to be out there and showcase the final 4 weeks of the season and see what it looks like out there with Devontae Adams. See what it looks like out there with Josh Jacobs doing what he does. See what it looks out there with Derek Carr. See if it has a chance to be as special as at least I believed it could be. The reason why I thought it was important to make sure Waller was taken care of, Renfro was taken care of, Carr was taken care of, and obviously Adams is in the mix. So that's the first and foremost thing I want to see the final 4 weeks. And I want to see them play every single game. I don't care if they lose the first 3 and then all of a sudden Kansas City coming up on. No, I don't care. I want them to play all 4 games. Look, they missed plenty already. They can rest in the offseason. They've had plenty of downtime. They need to go ahead and play the final 4 games as far as I'm concerned. Second, what I want to see from the Raiders, the final 4 games, discipline. I want to see discipline play offensively and defensively, right? That was something that we heard in training camp. That was something we heard in preseason. This team is not going to shoot themselves in the foot. This team is going to learn how not to lose before they have to learn how to win, right? That was something, and it was clever, and I thought it was great. And I remember when I talked about it, and I asked Josh McDaniels about it and got a great answer, and it was cool. So many people wrote stories about it, right? Ed Graney from the RJ, Vinny Bonsignore, Paul Gutierrez. I mean, everyone's writing stories about this is what the Raiders are going to do. This is their method to the madness. Great. I thought I was a genius for coming up with that, right? And then all of a sudden, it's December and they're still talking about learning how not to lose. Okay, well, now you got to play with discipline, right? And it's funny, I was talking to Mark McMillan. He was on my radio show, and he's a former NFL defensive back, played with the Chiefs, played with the Eagles. He's a regular contributor on my show. And I asked him, I said, how do you go and get guys to play with discipline? He said, Q, they just have to be disciplined players, right? I mean, that's just what they are. They can't flip a switch. If they're not disciplined players, then you get rid of the guys who aren't, and you go get guys that are disciplined. You do that in free agency and in the draft. And I hadn't even thought about that. But when you go and sign guys in free agency, you go back and look at their history. Like a Jerry Tillery, he has a history of being undisciplined. He has a history of butting heads with, people in the locker room. And that's apparently what happened with him with the Chargers. Undisciplined, a lot of unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, and the philosophies between the coaches and him weren't on the same page, and they kind of butted heads. So, again, I'm not trying to kick Jerry Tillery out the club. I think he's a good player, but if he can't learn to play with discipline, then there's going to be a problem because, look, this team needs to be able to play with discipline. They're not good enough to have undisciplined plays and still overcome those. Some teams, like the Seahawks that won the Super Bowl, they had an opportunity. Remember, I always say, anyone who's been listening to the show for a long time, you got to have the car thieves and choir boys. If you're not good enough to have those car thieves that are going to make those kind of undisciplined plays at times, if you're not good enough to overcome that, then you can't have those guys. And that's how I've matured. That's how I've grown as far as what I believe that you need to have as far as, players on your team. This team, to me, is not good enough to go in there and play undisciplined. They're not good enough to get an unsportsmanlike penalty on the last drive like they did with Jerry Tillery. They're not good enough to have a guy like Cleve Farrell jump off sides and give the ball back to the Rams. And think about this. If Cleve Farrell doesn't jump off sides and give the ball back to the Rams, the Raiders run 3 plays and kick the ball back, they're going to win that game because there's going to be time taken off the clock. Even just that one possession, and again, like I said about Derek Carr in segment number 1, is not the only reason that they lost, but it's a big reason that they lost. Multiple little things led to the big, ultimate, big ugly in the room, which was a big L. So I would like to see offense and defense very disciplined play. And I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if the guys on the team are capable of doing that, but they need to show that they can so they can be part of the team moving forward. So that's part 2. That's B. C, I'd like to see a winning streak. Right? That 3-game winning streak was fun, right? They have 4 games left. I'm not saying that they got to go win all 4 and close out the season like that, but it'd be nice to see a nice little win streak, 2 or 3 games. Nice to see at least 3-game winning streak, whether it's starting this week with the Patriots or closing out the season, right? At Allegiant Stadium. I mean, we know they have the 2 final games against San Francisco and Kansas City, and those are going to be 2 dogfights, right? Because San Francisco's defense is, one hell of a defense. They got their 3rd-string quarterback in there and Brock Purdy, and you saw what they were able to do to Tampa Bay on Sunday, and Kansas City is still Kansas City. So those are going to be tough, but I'd like to see the Raiders, close out the season with a nice little win streak. Again, 3-4 games, that'd be great. I think it would give Raider Nation a better feel. I think it would give the coaching staff more confidence that, hey, we are doing things the right way because, look, they need to get confidence too. They still have to prove to themselves and prove to everyone else that they can get it done. Josh McDaniels, we all know he's a really good offensive coordinator. Nobody knows if he's a really good head coach. So he needs to prove that to the owner. He needs to prove that to the front office. He needs to prove that to Raider Nation. And Raider Nation can't fire him because, they can't get rid of him. I mean, he really doesn't have to prove that to Raider Nation and the front office. I mean, Dave Ziegler's his guy. So really, he's only got to prove it to the owner. But I just think that it would be good for the players in the locker room, and it'd be good for the coaches themselves to say, yeah, what we're doing, what we're coaching it up, it is trending in the right direction, and we gonna be all right, right? Isn't that what they say? We gonna be all right. That's what they need to say. So a win streak would help and go a long way in proving that they gonna be all right. Finally, what I'd like to see in the final 4 games, I'd like to see Josh Jacobs go on and win that rushing title in the NFL. I really would, and that's just a selfish one, and that's okay. I don't mind being selfish and telling you that I'm being selfish. Big Josh Jacobs fan. I was a Josh Jacobs fan before he was even drafted by the Silver and Black. I'm happy that he's a Raider, and I want to see him close this thing out. He's leading the league in rushing right now, and I would love to see him finish this thing off. And regardless what team he plays for next, just go out closing out his, Raider at least initial rookie contract as the number 1 rusher in the league. I think that'd be fantastic. What a story that'd be. You get your 5th-year option decline, and all you do is go and lead the league in rushing. That would be awesome. He's got 4 more games. Right now, Josh Jacobs is at 1,402 yards with 11 touchdowns. Who's number 2? Derrick Henry, 1,199 yards. So basically about 200 yards behind him with 11 touchdowns. Who's number 3? Nick Chubb, 1,153 yards and 12 TDs. Number 4, Saquon Barkley, 1,083 yards, 8 TDs. And number 5 is Miles Sanders with the Eagles, 1,068 yards and 11 touchdowns. So, I mean, he's almost 400 yards better than Miles Sanders. And look, things could change quick, fast, in a hurry. He can have a bad game, a slow game, and not run the ball too well. And these guys could have monster games just like he's had monster games. But if he gets around 100 yards a game, I have a great feeling that he's going to win that rushing title. I would love to see that. I just think that would be fitting. I think that that'd be a hell of a story. And, I personally, just my gut feeling, think that the Raiders are going to find a way to keep Josh Jacobs in the mix and keep him around a little bit longer. But, man, if that would not be the explanation point, like, yeah, boom, this is why you need to keep me, because he went out there, and won the rushing title, that would be awesome. He's been great all season long. So even if he were to shut it down right now and not play another down the rest of this season, I still think it was fantastic. But like I said, selfishly, that's not what I want. I want him to go ahead and finish this thing off strong and win the rushing title. And I think that would be great. So those are the 4 things that I really want to focus in on and want the Raiders to focus in on the final 4 games of the season. Waller and Renfrow playing, disciplined play offensively and defensively. I'd like to see the Raiders put together a win streak and Josh Jacobs continue to do what he does and win the rushing title in the NFL. Coming up in segment number 3, your calls and text straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Before I get to that, though, I do want to tell you about Prize Picks. And when I talk about Prize Picks, you probably wonder, what exactly is that? Well, it's daily fantasy that's made easy. There's no competing against any other people. It's just you versus the projections that are available. You pick 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. And they got projections in every sport: NFL, NBA, NHL, PGA. I mean, you want to talk about men's college hoop, women's college hoops, it doesn't matter. They've got it. When the WNBA gets started, they'll have that. The World Cup, got it. Esports, got it. Tennis, yep, you can imagine, they got it. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's super easy, safe and fast withdrawals, and currently operational in over 30 states and in Canada. What we need you to do right now is go download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. You deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. Don't forget, enter the promo code Locked On and sign up for instant deposit match up to $100. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your time to shine. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. I'll even get a tweet in on today's show. Got hit up at your boy Q254. Send a direct message about the game. So we'll get to that coming up in this segment as well. But let's start off with a call. Raider Beck in Concord. He's calling to talk about something I mentioned quite a bit on Monday's show, and that's reading the room. Here he is, Raider Beck in Concord.
Hey, Q, it's Raider Beck in Concord. Terrible loss on Thursday. You talked a lot about reading the room. Like Brandon Staley last year when we were playing against the Chargers, and the guy just didn't read the room. When Bisaccia, we would have took the tie, and he decided to be aggressive, and they lost. And I feel like McDaniels, he just cannot read the room. In my opinion, Derek Carr is a better quarterback when he plays aggressive. He might make mistakes, he might throw some picks, but he has that kind of confidence where he'll keep going And usually I feel like we end up on the right side of the game when Derek Carr is aggressive. Josh McDaniels he can't, it doesn't seem like he can read the room. Kind of like Brandon Staley last year, that game. But it seems like every game, Josh McDaniels just doesn't have a pulse on the team, or he just doesn't get it. So anyways, I'm rambling. Thanks for all you do, man. Take care.
Raider Beck, thanks for the call, my man. I appreciate you. And I can see exactly where you're coming from when you talk about reading the room as it pertains to Brandon Staley in week 18. That was the Chargers and Raiders at Allegiant Stadium. And the way that McDaniels has Carr playing right now, right? There could be something to what you're saying about, is Carr 100% comfortable? Is he better playing in a different style? And, it's when I look at Carr, I don't see a guy that is 100% comfortable. I feel like he's trying to be too much what Josh McDaniels wants. And I think he did that with John Gruden. He tried to be too much what John Gruden wanted to do, to the point where, remember, there was that game where he went out and made some great plays, and then he went over to Gruden on the sideline, was like, do you trust me now? I feel like he's going to have that moment with McDaniels. It just isn't this year. So we'll see. Sometimes I think that Derek Carr just needs to let it rip and just trust his natural abilities. Sometimes you just have to do that. Sometimes you've got to take the teaching, take the coaching, understand what they're saying, but then also put that into your own words, right? Put that into your own natural ability and make it happen. I think that sometimes Derek Carr forgets to go ahead and trust his ability and just let it rip. Sometimes he needs to do that. So Raider Beck, thank you for that call. I do appreciate you. Next up, I got a text from Raider Pastor. It says, good morning, Q. It's Raider Pastor. I attended the game on Thursday night at SoFi. It truly was a home game for the Raiders. We were all disappointed with the results. It was hard to watch the few Ram fans there celebrate. We really gave that game away. Embarrassing. Driving home after the game, listening to the post game, I became more sad. So I switched to gospel Christmas music. I was reminded that there are more important things than a Raider win: faith, family, friends, health, and country. We don't give up on any of those. We also won't give up on the Raiders. There you go, Raider Pastor. Nice text from you. And at least you were out at the game and got to witness it, even though it wasn't what you wanted to see. But having the ability to actually go out there to a game with family and friends, or whoever you were out there with, is also a blessing. So you're right. I kind of always take that approach now after life happens, that there's more important things than just a football game, but I do realize how much it means, so I don't want to diminish it and make it sound like it's just a game, but it's something that, for me personally, I can't get consumed in, where it's like it takes me over, right? And I'm the miserable dude in the room to be around after a Raider loss, or, family doesn't want to be around me. Like, to me, and again, this is just me, it's not a good way to live. So that's good that you were able to go ahead and say, hey, I'm going to shut this on down. I'm going to go ahead and listen to some gospel Christmas music and call it a day, right? And so I can definitely appreciate that. So I'm sure you'll be ready this Sunday, though, when the Raiders host the Patriots at Allegiant Stadium. Thank you so much for that text. I appreciate you. Got a couple more. Chuck Raider from the 512. He's calling to talk about the game and share his frustrations with Derek Carr. Here he is, Chuck Raider from the 512.
Q, what's up, buddy? This is Chuck Raider from the 512. Man, that was a brutal game. I'm done with Carr. I mean, I've been sticking up for that guy for a long time. And after watching last night's game, that pass in the end zone that was intercepted, what a joke. You put up those 3 points, we'd have no worries, man. I mean, I can't keep defending the guy. I'm tired of it. You only put up 16 points on a team that doesn't have Aaron Donald. That Rams team was so depleted, you get a quarterback that's never even played in their system. Right? I mean, with 3 days, 4 days to prepare, and he beat you. I mean, the coaches, this is a joke, bro. I'm tired of Carr. I've been defending the guy for years, but this is ridiculous, man. How about the 3rd and 2? I'm just going to say the 3rd and 2 play. When all you need is a first down, you're up by 2 scores. You need a first down. The guy goes back, throws deep, overthrows Adams. I mean, what a joke, dude. What are we doing? I don't understand it. And I'm completely frustrated. That was a winnable game, man. If there was ever a winnable game, that was it. I mean, I'm done with this guy. Let me put it to you this way. If we had a quarterback, like the Bears quarterback, for example, and I'm drawing a blank on his name. The kid's unbelievable. But he has nobody around him. I mean, no talent. Very little at all. I mean, the O-line's terrible for the Bears. But you put that guy in the Raiders offense, I mean, at this point, I'd rather see Stidham. And I know Stidham's a backup, whatever. At least he knows McDaniel's system. And I don't think Stidham is going to go for a bomb on a 3rd and 2. I mean, I just can't believe this guy's thinking, man. I mean, man, how much time can you give a quarterback, bro? That's all I got for you. All right, you're doing a hell of a job, man. Love you. Keep up the great work. Listen to you every morning. Take care.
Big Chuck, thank you so much for the call, my man. Appreciate you. And I can definitely understand those frustrations 100%. I understand all of Raider Nation's frustrations. I really do. It's been a frustrating season, to say the least, right? And so, to be in December and see mistakes that were happening in September, it's definitely frustrating, But again, I don't want to pile on Derek Carr, but that first half interception just can't happen, right? You've got to get some points there. Touchdowns are preferred, but a field goal is better than 0. 3 is better than 0. 7 is better than 3, right? I mean, that's just how it goes. You've got to get something in that situation, and the Raiders got nothing. Could you imagine if they got 3 points in that situation and Cleve Farrell doesn't jump off sides on that punt? There's no doubt that's a win. And hey, let's not leave Jerry Tillery out of the party, right? And Jerry Tillery doesn't make that boneheaded play at the end. Again, I feel dumb because I thought it was no big deal at first. I was like, oh, whatever. But there was so much going on in my mind, so much swimming in my mind that had gone wrong for the Raiders. To me, at that point, Jerry Tillery's penalty was like, yeah, whatever. But really, it was as bad, if not worse, than the Carr interception and Cleve Farrell jumping off sides. So thank you so much for that. Here we go. Let's get to this tweet from North Logan Raider. It says, Q, North Logan Raider here. It's been a bit since I tweeted or even listened to anything Raiders. I'm just tired of Raider Nation being like, let's fire the head coach and all the coaches and our quarterback needs to go. Oh, Waller needs to go, etc. I'm just tired of all the drama. Now, I know you've been trying to keep us fans viewing the bigger picture, but sometimes it's hard for you and even me to be positive and not upset. To be real, us Raiders should be used to this by now. To be real, us Raiders should be used to this by now. Being upset, never winning the Super Bowl, just sniffing the playoffs, but coming up short. I want to listen, but I'm checked out and just waiting to see if McDaniels and Ziegler can right this sinking ship. Much love to you and your family, Q, and have a safe and happy Christmas. That's from North Logan Raider. And I understand, and I've said this many times, I totally understand your frustrations. I understand you wanting to be checked out. I don't have to be the guy that you tell me that you're checked out. If you want to check out, that's cool. That's your option, right? Nobody is required to listen to the show or anything Raider Nation every day. No one or any day. I don't need to know. I don't have to be the guy that finds out that you reach out to me to tell me you're not listening. You just don't have to listen and don't have to reach out. It's okay. Right? I mean, I don't know. So many people do that though and reach out and like, hey, I'm not listening. Okay. Thanks. Right? I mean, at the end of the day, dog, I still got a job to do. Win, lose, tie. I'm going to do my job every single day. It's easy for people to talk about the Raiders and talk about anything when it's positive and winning. It's not that easy to come to the pulpit and talk about it each and every day when it's another tough loss. But I'm going to do it. It's my job, and I'm going to try to keep it positive. But if it's negative that we got to talk about, we'll talk about some negativity as well. So thank you so much for that. And hopefully, at some point, maybe you'll come back to the party. But then again, you're probably not listening. So I guess that was a wasted tweet. My bad. Anyway, let's get one more call. Let's try to end on a positive note. Raider Pig, he's calling to give his thoughts on what he believes is going on with the team or what could be going on with the team. Here he is, Raider Pig.
Hey, Q, this is Raider Pig, longtime Raider caller going back to the Greg Papa Rod Brooks days on the old 1050. Anyways, I met you actually back in 2019, the Raiders' last tailgate when you guys did the locked-on gig at the Coliseum. Anyways, I want to give my insight here on what I think the deal is with the Raiders. And I'm going to go at Josh McDaniels because McDaniels going into this year did not really set any clear-cut goals for the team. Remember last year, even though there's all this adversity, the team knew that the goal was very clear. It was to make the playoffs. Well, he inherits the playoff team, and there are no goals. Did he ever say that to the media? I can't recall if he did. So that might explain why they're playing these games where they get up double digits. The team probably sits and thinks, we've done what we need to do. We got a big lead, and nobody's working in unison. They're not unified. They're not motivated properly by the head coach. And so that could be an explanation why they've given up 4 10-point leads this year. And that's like the first time since 1930, 0-4 in games, so they're up by double digits at halftime. I mean, that to me is a lack of motivation, a lack of setting goals, clear cut for the team. Let me know what you think of that, but that's my 2 cents worth. I don't know if the guy has the mentality to be a head coach because you can't take on a team that has 3 of the top 25 players in the NFL and they do this year. It's embarrassing.
Thanks so much for the call, my man. And yeah, that tailgate party back in 2019, it was epic. Big thanks to Anna and Rob for making sure that the wife and me were both in attendance. That was that final game there in Oakland against the Jaguars, and it was a great event, right? It was a great party. It was a show before I got to Allegiant Stadium and checked out the shows that they have each and every game. Now, unfortunately, the Raiders lost that game, and that's one that I can actually say that the officials stole that one. I don't never complain about the officials and say that they're the reasons, but they literally stole that game from the Raiders. I don't want to even go back into it because it was frustrating seeing all of Raider Nation upset leaving the Coliseum after the officials did what they did. But as far as what you're talking about when it comes to McDaniels and this team, you know, I can see what you're saying. I mean, the expectations, the head coach never put the expectations on the team. I think I put the expectations on the team because of what they did last year and thought, okay, they've improved their team, so the expectations should be higher, right? I mean, that's kind of what I said, and I was really leading the charge on that. And I know a lot of Raider Nation believed the same thing. And you know, I don't want to sit here and say that you were a guy or put it on anybody else. So I'll just put it on me and say that my expectations were really high, but you know, the coaching staff never said that. What they did say is they're trying to win right now, but they're also trying to evaluate for the future and make sure once they get this thing to where they want it to be, it can be stable for years to come. They want to have, you know, a consistent product each and every year instead of a one-off and then all of a sudden a couple years off. And then, hey, here's a playoff run, then a couple years away. Here's a playoff run, here's a couple years away. You know what I mean? They want to be consistent like what they were used to when they were in New England. But thank you, Raider Pig, for that call. I do appreciate you, and that's all I got time for on today's show. Coming up tomorrow, we'll start to turn the page and start looking forward to the next game up on the schedule, which is the Patriots. Again, tomorrow we'll have an opportunity to talk to head coach Josh McDaniels as well at the Intermountain Healthcare Performance Center. He'll meet with us, and maybe we'll find out about Darren Waller. Maybe we'll find out about Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow today. Who knows? I know Patrick Graham will be talking to the media. Mick Lombardi will be talking to the media, the OC and the DC. So we'll get some sound from those guys. And, of course, we'll have plenty more to talk about here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. So thanks again for making the show your first listen each and every day. Remember, you can find the show free and available on all platforms. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family, and most importantly, as always, just win, baby.